Welcome to Kenversations. On this episode we speak with Chris King, who was the lead singer of the WILD GIRAFFES. This is their debut album from 3 decades ago. And they've got a brand new release that's been put together from a whole bunch of different interesting sources in the band's archives. And this LP version has a great booklet inside. And they're smart enough in this new age to put out a CD at the same time with different material. So you gotta buy both. Smart marketing on this band's part. Chris is also currently a member of the super Cleveland band, the Rumbling Spires. And you'll get to see a song of theirs recorded last summer at the Happy Dog when they opened up for the baseball project during MLB All-Star Weekend. Super stuff. And you're going to enjoy Chris's interview as I did. It was the easiest one to edit ever because the guy never pauses talking and he never doesn't stop saying something interesting. There was so little fat in this conversation. So on his way home he remembered all the things he wanted to say. So I'm sure there's going to be a part 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I didn't get laid till I got out of high school, and I go to my 30th year reunion, and the girls all just swarm up. Oh, Chris, how are you? How are you? I'm like,
and you're married. Now I'm married.
Damn it. Oh, if only I'd have known. I grew up with a bad self-image, you know. I up until like 11th grade, I carried 20, 30 pounds extra, you know, too many Oreos and ice cream and shit. And then I was just like, screw it, man, I gotta get some chicks. And lost the weight, and then, you know, I've kept it off, and it just, I don't know where I was going with that. A bad self-image, yeah. And when I was a little kid, when I was, you know, 3.5 years old, I burnt the shit out of my leg. Playing with a leaf fire. We were playing kicking a ball around in the neighbor's backyard. His mom, it was 1961, everybody had a burning barrel or a burning patch where you'd burn up the paper garbage and all that. And she had this little patch and burning up a bunch of stuff, which included the newspapers. And she had to go check on the baby in the house and said, "Don't you guys go near that fire, I'll be right back." Runs in the house, around the corner, Dennis and I, boom, like, you know, like lightning, we're on this fire. I remember this vividly, dude. I remember this like it was yesterday. And there was a really weird aspect to it too, because I went up and I took a stick and I stirred the fire up just to mess around with it, and a big old piece of newspaper came up flaming, like if you see it blow it. It was a little windy that day, and wrapped right around my jeans, and all of a sudden my left leg's on fire. And I'm standing there and I was taking the stick and trying to knock the fire off, and just, they said I'm lucky I just stood still. And Dennis runs into the house, goes, Mommy, Chris is on fire. Ah. So she runs out, you know, rips my pants up, puts me out, calls the hospital. But what's weird is, first of all, that I remember it like yesterday. And secondly, about halfway through it, right after I started swatting the fire off there and realizing my hand was getting burnt, all of a sudden my perspective changed to about, I don't know, about 15, 20 feet away up on this little ridge they had in their backyard. And my memory watched the scene from there.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
Wow. So like your first out-of-body experience.
Kind of. It was very strange. And another strange aspect is that it was September and it had been really cold and snowed, like a really early cold snap, and my mom had a nylon snowsuit on me. 1961, flame retardancy standards were probably not all that great. And she took it off about a half an hour before that happened, or I'd have just been dead probably. Yeah. So I look at it philosophically. It makes me more tolerant of, I don't judge people on the way they look or anything that happened to them or anything. It doesn't affect me because I have that perspective my entire life. And it lent itself to, you talk about the, I was talking about the bad self-image. So growing up, back to getting laid. Growing up, I always had that. And I always thought, oh, girls aren't going to like that. And I got a little porky. Little did I know that the world was my oyster had I chose to pluck the pearl.
How many guys in bands joined bands to get girls?
Oh, all of them. Every
Pretty much.
single stinking one.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
There'd be the musician virtuoso geek that probably was in it because he could kick ass.
Yeah.
But once he got laid, he figured out, hey.
We played, here's a great first, I guess, would that have been our first professional gig? We played 2 gigs at Andrews School for Girls. You talk about a place to be a rock band. And we were crappy. We just started. We're playing covers. We probably played Ready for Love and Tush and a couple of originals that Ed had. March of the Monsters, Monster Guitars. That was a classic. Instrumental, by the way. And then the next gig we played at at Andrews, the second one was with the Pagans. We invited them along.
Jesus Christ.
And there was a riot because Edgar brought this girl that he worked with, and she, a little older than the girls at Andrews, and didn't like their prissy attitude and got into a fight with one of them, and there were like 15 Willoughby cop cars flying down. It was like the biggest thing. It's like they probably have barely lived it down at Andrews. So.
What year was that? 74?
Oh God, 76 or 7.
Okay.
77 probably.
Okay. Yeah, Ready for Love and Tush would be like 74, 75-ish.
Yeah, we just pulled them out.
Yeah. Well, what other songs do you think you guys played?
We played all a Bob Dylan tune.
Which one?
All Along the Watchtower. No, wait. Once upon a time, dressed so fine, through the bums of dime.
Positively, or Like a Rolling Stone.
Like a Rolling Stone, yeah, duh. Again, it's been 40 years. I can remember the lyrics, I can't remember the title. But no, that was cool. That was our first foray into playing out. I had food coloring in my long hair, red and blue, and by the end of the night it was all purple streaks. Mike Hudson was crawling on the basketball net and, just pissing everybody off in general. But it was a great gig. It's like rock and roll, man. And the girls dug us. Back to my point about the girls.
Now, how did any of them want to fuck the Pagans?
Oh, I don't know. See, this is the problem with being in the band at that level. Before you play and after you play, you have to carry the gear, wrap up the mics. Meanwhile, all my buddies are out in the bushes making out with these chicks from Andrews, and I'm like, son of a bitch. So by the time we got all loaded up and boxed up in the truck, they're all gone. We're like, what the hell just happened? And our friends would thank us profusely during the coming weeks. But then after that, this is where it gets kind of cool. Our first bar gig was at the Looking Glass in Euclid on Shore Center Drive. and it was an old disco that was completely mirrored, had a mirror ball, had all these lights, sounded like crap because the sound's just bouncing off of glass everywhere, but it was cool. It's a nice stage, good room. And we get on a bill, they're having Wednesday night New Wave nights for the whole month of July, let's say. And it's us, the Pagans, Hammer Damage, or I mean the Rubber City Rebels, and PERE UBU. And, you know, pretty crazy. I walk in after work, we're supposed to get there, you know, 4:35. I walk in, there's nobody in the bar. It's all lit up. There's one person standing there. He's wearing jeans and a gray sweatshirt. He's got sunglasses on in the middle of the place. I thought that was weird. I'm this fresh scrubbed kid just coming into the rock and roll world. And he's got little slits cut in it. He's got half a dozen pairs of sunglasses stuck in the sweatshirt, and he's wearing the sunglasses. And I walk up and I go, "Hey man, how you doing? I'm Chris from the Wild Giraffes. Hey, we're here to play tonight. You work here?" And he goes, looks at me through the sunglasses, lifts them up a little, looks at me. I can tell he's fucking hammered. Puts the glasses back down, reaches over, takes a sopping wet bar rag off the bar, and proceeds to stuff his pants with it. It lets it soak a minute and goes, "Hudson, Pagans." That was my introduction to Mike Hudson, and then obviously I look around and I go, "Okay, I think I'm going to like this."
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And it was cool. And
you were 15?
Huh?
15?
No, I was probably 18 at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, but well, I had to get into the bar anyhow, so yeah.
Right.
And then the next that week, when PERE UBU got there, you know, a couple hours later, I walk up to Crocus and I say, "Hey Crocus, my name's Chris, Wild Giraffes, you know, great to meet you, dude, how you doing? I love your band." And he said, "Oh, I suppose you're opening for us." And I just looked at him and I was like, yeah, we're gonna open. Okay, pal, I get where you're coming from. And so I go back, tell the boys, we play our gig, we go home, we go to practice, and we go, "Yeah, that damn Crocus, man, he really pissed." And I didn't bring it up, somebody else brought it up going, "I can't believe that son of a bitch said that to you." And so we go, "You know what, let's make fun of him." And so we wrote this song. It's like, "I love my doggy, I love my doggy." And I'm just spouting all these nonsense words and doing the Wally, Crocus's dance at the same time. And Crocus was sitting at the bar looking at us, turned around, and didn't even acknowledge me for the next 20 years. I finally got a head nod out of him at one point later on, but that was about it.
He speaks, like when you imitated him, I realized he speaks like Orson Welles.
Yes, he absolutely does. He, that haughty air.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Oh, well.
Like an English hybrid Orson Welles.
Yes, when he comes from the east side of Cleveland or whatever. You know?
Yeah, he's a Cleveland Heights boy.
Yeah, oh, Cleveland Heights. Oh, well, that's the good part of Cleveland, though, you know. So.
But I don't know if I told you this, but in 2006 he played Borders on Black Friday, and PERE UBU played an in-store at the Severance Shopping Center, you know, his hometown.
Yeah.
On Black Friday. I took my like 8 and 10-year-old kids there and videoed it, and after the show, it was the only time he's ever been human to me.
Really?
Yes.
He's mellowed. I've heard he's mellowed.
He saw my kids paying attention to him, and the other kids weren't. And you know, my daughter's a nice blonde-haired, good-looking girl, That's probably about how old she was when this happened, and he came up to her outside of the gig and said, "How did you like it?" And she goes, "I like the song about baked beans."
That's a great story. Yeah.
But he, you know what, I mean, you think about the art of rock, and the art of rock is creating the persona of who you want to be. So
Exactly.
you're talking about self-image, and what your music gave you the opportunity to do is create who you wanted to be.
Yeah.
To a degree. I mean,
Well,
it gave you a persona that might have been a little different than without it, you know?
it gave me confidence, but I have never. I am the king of candor, and I don't see. I figure if I'm trying to put on an effect like
It's
that,
not real.
then I always have to.
Right.
I will always be me, whether you like it or not. If you like it, cool. I try to make you like me, but if you don't,
I stand
that's cool
corrected.
too.
Some of the
Some
people
of the
are
people.
able to create a persona
Yeah.
that is who they would imagine.
Well,
to be.
I couldn't, you know, I kind of liked who I was, so I
There you
didn't
go.
really want to be anybody else.
So tell me about the genesis of the Wild Giraffes.
Okay, 7th grade, I'm walking down the hall, and I see this chubby kid, goofy looking, on crutches. He's wearing shorts, cut off shorts, which was unusual in school, and he's wearing Chuck Taylors with the toe caps cut off, and he's got like industrial bandages all over his feet, and he's carrying every single book in his locker and then some, trying to
crutches.
hobble down the hall. And I'm looking and I'm going, all right, I don't even know this kid, but this isn't right. So I went up and I go, hey dude, you know, not to be weird, but can I help you out here? And we became fast friends. A lot of similar interests in music, like all similar interests in music. Just kept talking about it. We would sing together like on school projects, and you know, just sit in a room and listen to a record and sing together. Somehow we realized probably that our voices work pretty well together. And you know, so in 10th grade it became like, you know, we really got to start a band, man. You know, we really need to have a band. And then 11th grade, get a little more serious. And then probably it was about the end of 11th grade we said, and our circle of friends that would sit around the lunch table was Alan McGinty, Chris Burgess, myself, Edgar Reynolds, and you know, various other people. Alan McGinty, coincidentally, between 7th and 8th grade, moved right next door to me. Another odd coincidence in the whole thing is that our dads knew each other from years ago, and were like really good friends.
Wow.
And so Alan was, you know, we were always hanging out, and he had a set of drums. Just an old crappy, if you remember the Alden's catalogs, they were in Chicago or something. He had an old Alden set, and he could play. He took lessons, a couple lessons, and we're all sitting around the table, and we go, okay, we got to form a band. We have to have a band. He goes, well, I play drums. And we're like, okay, cool. Yeah, and I knew he played drums because, you know, I lived next door to him. I go, yeah, he plays drums. He goes, I don't have a set though. And we go, ah, crap, that's not good. So Alan sold his car that he had and went and bought a drum set. And, you know, Chris Burgess, I think he dabbled at guitar and whatnot. And so he just, he said, well, I'll play bass. you know, because we all knew Ed was the guitar player. Ed had played. We all heard him play, and he was incredible in 9th grade.
Who did you meet in 7th grade? Was that
Edgar?
Okay,
Edgar, yeah, and we all knew he was an incredible guitar player, even back then. He was a man among boys when he was, you know, 16 years old. Played in the jazz ensemble at Lakeland when he was in high school. I can't remember the guy who directed the orchestra, but Edgar was phenomenal. He could play many instruments. And okay, so anyhow, Chris Burgess says, well, I'll play bass. I had a bass and a little amp at the time, and we started practicing. My problem was, and probably why I sing so loud today, is because we didn't have a PA. So I would have to sing
louder
over them, and they never wanted to play quiet. And actually our first gig, that first Andrews gig I told you about, I hadn't ever heard my voice through a PA prior to that. And so, yeah, we finally get you know, everything just amps up from there. We eventually get a little more gear. Okay, and Chris was our bass player. We played Mentor High School, our A lecture room, for all of the classes. That went pretty well, actually, except for the people trying to teach all the other classes. And after that, we started the Andrews gigs. The band that opened for us, Smack and Rouge, had a guy named Dave Ivan in there, bass player. And the rest of us saw this guy and we're just like, he's a maniac, you know what? And Chris he was thudding along, but you know, so we said, we got to get this Dave guy. And we called him up, he comes in, he and McGinney locked up, like immediately, just locked down. And that probably was the actual genesis of the Giraffes, because once the rhythm section came together, it just went off the charts. Then we got a PA, Edgar and I could hear each other start singing, the gigs got better and better. I don't know how we attracted the attention of Buddy Maver, but at the Agora, but somehow we got on an Agora gig. And Buddy, I think, I'd have to ask him, but he loved us because after the first gig or two, he knew that we would bring a solid show. He didn't have any worries bringing the Wild Giraffes in to open for, you know, Ramones or Ronnie Speck or whoever, you know, whoever was booking them at that time. They always knew they would get a strong, good performance.
And fans, did you guys have it?
Oh yeah, our fan club, we actually had a fan club, and for I brought some fan club stuff, and we probably had, for a local band that only left town a couple times to go play some gigs, we had like 400 or 500 people. I think my wife told me it was like, you know, over 450 people in our fan club.
Was she running it? Or?
Yeah, she and Mary, our friend Mary Meal, were running the thing at the time. Did a great job.
How do you spell Mary's last name?
MEIL-Johnson.
Okay.
Excuse me.
So when did you meet your wife? How old were you?
I was 20.
Okay.
We were playing... Oh God, where were we playing? Pirates Cove, maybe. And Mike Terrell at that time had joined the band. Oh, that was another addition. Mike, I kind of skipped a couple of big steps there.
Sorry.
But that's all right. But anyhow, meeting my wife. When we got Mike Terrell in the band, his two brothers became our roadies. And they had access to a van, and they kind of dug it, and we could sneak them into bars and stuff. And so they became our roadies. They went to high school. Rick went to high school with my wife, and so they brought along a bunch of their friends to a couple of shows, and there's Beth, locked on. I can still feel her arm around my arm. But no, it's cool. It's all good. We've been together for, you know, since she was 17 and I was 20. 62 now, so it's been a while.
Wow, wow.
She hasn't killed me yet. That's a good sign.
Well, that's part of their job, is to make you think she could.
Yeah, yeah.
Rein you toward better.
Okay, well, let me roll back into this real quick.
Okay.
Around that time that we were playing Andrews, we had another guitar player. We added another guitar. Ed didn't want to do it all. And his name was Jeff Iannini, I-N-A-N-I-N-I, I think it is. And, you know, he was a great guitar player, playing along with us. And, let's see, okay, he, as guitar players tended to do with the Wild Giraffes, every 2.5 years, they'd get sick of Edgar and his, like, dominance, or wanting to be dominant, and they would quit. And so Mike eventually kind of got fed up, and we got, Jeff got fed up. We got Mike. Our friend Steve Podison introduced us to him. They worked together, and
was he a hipster then?
Yeah, and he was the ultimate hipster. He is the ultimate hipster. But he introduced us to Mike. We got Mike in the band. That was great. That's when we started doing the recording and all that. Jeff was on the first single, but after that, it was Mike Terrell. And then, as I said, he got a little tired of it, and we had played with a band called the Executives from Ashtabula, and Bill Elliott was their guitar player, and we saw him and we thought, this kid is great. And we kind of, Mike was given rumblings, so we called Bill. Bam, that's the next thing. And then after a while, couple 2.5 years, Bill got a little sick of Edgar, you know, just trying to push and tweaking buttons and stuff. He quit. And we got Tom Jarris, an amazing singer and guitar player. And I'll tell you, I will never pick an era of the band that I liked the best, because they were all wonderful and fantastic and filled with all these memories that I wouldn't trade for anything. And I wouldn't trade the people out in any of those situations. It all happened because it was supposed to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
So talk to me about your first realization of rock and roll. What set the fire?
The Beatles on Ed Sullivan.
How old were you when that?
6. And I immediately went into my room and started singing songs and taking records in. You know, my parents were always very musical. My dad loved, you know, a bunch of country. He loved Trini Lopez. They both loved the Mamas and the Papas. My dad leaned more country. My mom was a little more pop, but she liked the country too. So I had a great little, you know, melting pot. And I remember this like it was yesterday. I'm laying on my floor getting ready for the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. And we already had one of their singles, which I thought was cool. And then I saw them, and my whole world just everything went and stopped. And I looked and I said, that's what I want to do. That's all I'm ever going to want to do. And I went into my room and just started singing every record I had, any record. And I was lucky. I had, in my little room, I had this big closet. And if I stood facing it and slid one of the doors open, it reverberated my voice back at me. And it was like a monitor. I could hear myself singing. and I would just sing everything. I'd put a Bee Gees record on, and a little bit later on, when I was a little old, I put a Bee Gees record on, sing all Barry's parts, go back, try to sing Robin's parts, go back, sing Barry, and I tried my best to just get as good as I could. And then, had a little problem though. I didn't know how to breathe right. There was that period during the Giraffes where my voice blew out.
Oh.
Bad monitors, not singing too loud, the whole thing, mostly bad monitors, and not knowing how to sing properly. And I paralyzed a vocal cord. You got 4 vocal cords, 2 major, 2 minor, or whatever, and I paralyzed one of them, causing 2 different notes to come out at the same time. And it was horrible. I ended up I went to a doctor, the doctor that would see Barbara Streisand when she was in town, and he called me an asshole because he said, well, do you drink? Do you, smoke? He didn't ask me what or anything like that. He just said, do you smoke? And I said, well, yes, sir, a little bit. And he said, well, you're an asshole. You want to be a professional singer? Quit doing that stuff. Well, I didn't take that one to heart, but the one I did was he said, get voice lessons. Learn how to support your voice. And I met this I forget how we even found her, but a wonderful woman named Dorothy Vogelin. She lived in Painesville Township, and she was an old show tune lady. And she was pretty old when I was there. God rest her soul. I hope she's still alive. I doubt it. But we would sing old show tunes. I'd go in there after a gig, we'd play Friday night, and my voice lesson was at like 9 o'clock on Saturday, or Sunday, whatever day, plug in a day, and I would have been up till like 3:34 in the morning, half drunk, playing a gig, and have to go in and sing, probably reeking of alcohol, and but she ground me through it, and taught me how to support, how to breathe properly, because your lungs go all the way down, to about your waist almost, damn near, and if you fill them properly, you will always have support. So I will forever love Dorothy Vogelin for that.
So you weren't a choir geek at all?
No. In 5th grade, there's my first public performance. Up through elementary school I was. And in the 5th grade choir, the lead singer was a kid named Rich Centenar that lived in my neighborhood. And he was going to sing the lead at the Christmas show that we were doing at the Great Lakes Mall. And he came up ill. He got the flu or something, so I was his backup, and I had to sing, and we're standing right in front of J.C. Penney's, and I had to give my first solo performance, and it was great. I still remember the song, which is weird.
What song was it?
Well, I'll borrow a stocking from Mrs. Elephant and have a big Christmas this year. Her leg is like a smokestack on an ocean ship. Poor Santa Claus will have to make an extra trip. I'll ride her for choo-choo trains, bikes, and aeroplanes, and just to make sure they get here, I'll borrow a stocking from Mrs. Elephant and have a big Christmas this year.
Excellent.
And that lit a fire too, man. That was like, okay, I can do this.
So was there a part of the buzz seeing people react to you?
Yeah, there was probably about 7 people standing there watching. My mom loved it, of course, but
you gave her a flyer of
yeah. Oh my God.
So you talked about the Beatles and Ed Sullivan and being 6 years old, and what jumped into my head was that was not very long after JFK was assassinated.
Yeah.
What do you remember about that? You know, being 6 and obviously old enough to remember, if you can remember the Beatles.
Yeah,
Tell me about that.
I remember that. I remember my mother being tremendously upset. And my dad was fairly staunch. He you know, didn't give away a lot really, but I could tell he was pretty upset too, just because that shouldn't ever happen, you know, no matter your politics. And especially at that time of the country, of what was going on. Yeah, I remember everything happening, and it had an effect on me because I guess maybe at that point it made me realize, made me look outside of my little kid world, you know, and I had to see the big world, and that was probably the first thing that brought that home for me.
First loss of innocence.
Yeah, it's like, wait a minute. I can understand something bad is going on here. I don't understand what it is.
Nor do we
but,
now.
Right. But I understand what happened, and Mom, Dad, tell me what's going on, you know?
Yeah.
But it really did. It was an eye-opener. It was a big deal. I remember that much.
Were you in school when it happened? Because I've heard many people recount the principal coming over the PA and announcing the president had just been shot.
You know, that I don't remember. It almost seems like I might have been home that day, like I had a cold or something, because my memory almost says that I was actually home. I don't know. I'm not really clear on that one.
Just interested because I was born the year before it happened, so it's within my lifetime. But like RFK's assassination, I was with my mom in the basement doing laundry while she did laundry and watching soap operas on the basement TV, and they broke away.
Broke in.
Yeah,
oh God. And you know it's a big deal breaking in on
and
that
was my first loss of innocence, I guess. You know?
Sure.
So after the Beatles, what hit you? Were you the Stones, Kinks guy?
Oh yeah, Stones, Kinks, anything we got. You know, I was lucky. I have a 3.5-year-old sister, or older sister, Karen. So she always brought records in, and I would always filter through hers. You know, end up stealing half of them once she got sick of them. And that was kind of cool too, because she and her friends were pretty hippy-dippy, and so they listened to a lot of the stuff like around 68, 69, 70, you know, they were starting to party a little, you know, and they were expanding their minds. They were older, so they were a little more into that, what was going on at the time. So I, you know, hung on to their coattails, and I'd take the record when they were done and go listen to it. So it was kind of cool. Support that.
What post, you know, like British invasion, like psychedelic era stuff hit your head the hardest? What made you think this is different?
Inagata Davida. Yeah, the first time I heard that on the radio, I was like, Dad, are you listening to this? He goes, yeah, I don't like it much. Okay, can you leave it on? I'm kind of digging it, you know. But no, it's stuff, I was so open to listening to stuff that that I was open to anything. Psychedelic, you name it. You know, I've never been like much of a prog guy.
Me neither. Yeah.
Psychedelic kind of leaves me cold if you take it too far. It's so hard to, you know, break down a genre, you know, to say do I like it or not. But no, you know, yeah, psych. I love psych stuff. I love everything. I try
Now, concurrent to psychedelia, you have the Velvet's debut coming out in '67, which, you know, the rap is it sold 2,500 copies and half of them started the band.
You're right.
When did you first hear the Velvets?
Boy, probably right about around the time they came out, but I'll be honest with you, they didn't have the impact on me that they had on everybody else. You know, at the time, I had been listening to so many polished professional records being put out that I heard it and it was, you know, a little noisy, a little sloppy. In my opinion, I listen to it now and I love it, you know. But back then, compared to my Guess Who and, you know, all the other bands that were coming out, I was kind of like, okay, yeah, I see where they're going. But it didn't impact me as much as, say, like Transformer did, you know, or something like that. You know. But yeah, the Velvets.
What artist is? If you had to pick one, who, and that's hard to do, but for me, I always say Dylan, but, you know.
Hence the shirt that you're wearing. Yes.
Yeah, but I wrote my college thesis on Townsend, you know, and so,
okay.
I mean, I love the Who had my head real hard, you know.
Sure. Yeah, me too. See, I was more of the, I guess I would say I was more of a straight ahead rocker. You know, I liked my James Taylors and I liked my Cat Stevens and stuff like that. But I leaned more toward the, you know, the Grand Funk and the James Gang and, you know, that kind of thing.
Who would you go out to see in the clubs when you weren't playing?
Everybody. I've seen, it's amazing. You could name, well, see, I have to qualify it. I could say you could name any cool band.
Yeah, cool's the person saying
right,
cool.
Right. And any cool band, I mean, I've seen thousands. I don't even know where I got the money. That's probably why I don't have any money
tickets
now.
were $2.75 fucking cents.
Yeah, I remember not wanting to pay $7.50 to see R.E.M. their first time at the Pirates Cove, and I left, and I still kick myself in the butt on that every day. But no, I would go see anybody because that back in the day, in the 70s. Like, I started going to shows. Bowie, his first show in Cleveland at Music Hall was my first concert I ever saw.
Wow.
We had 8 rows from the top at the Music Hall. Then, because of popular demand, he was back 6 weeks or a couple months later at Public Hall on the other side of that big stage, and we had the last 4 seats in the front row.
Wow.
That was impressive. But no, I saw everybody. You name a band from the 70s, and I probably saw them. Because, like I said, back then, the promoters had to fill the bill, and they'd put 2 or 3 bands on, and it was just, back then, it was like whoever was close to town. You might see Kansas with Cactus open, or
the juxtaposition of styles
like
was not. Yeah, it isn't now where it's prepackaged. You gotta have 2 hair bands together, It'd be like, you know, Mahavishnu Orchestra with Steppenwolf or something like that.
Exactly. And I've been to a million of those shows.
So were you going to the shows at Case? Like like the Kinks played Case in '71. It's one of my favorite bootleg tapes I've gotten from someone. You know.
I was mostly, to be honest, I didn't go to a lot of those. I saw Aerosmith at Woodling Gym in '73 or '4. That was pretty awesome. I almost died going in the door, and there were only 3,000 people there. But no, I never did the school shows all that much. I was mostly in Agora, Allen, Music Hall, Public Hall, you know, that kind of thing. not for any other reason than my schedule was probably full of other shows I was going to.
Did you go to the Vikings to learn?
Never went there. I've
Okay.
never been to the Viking, yeah. I didn't do a lot. See, the thing is, here's another thing. When we weren't playing, the Giraffes would practice 3 or 4 nights a week. There was like a 5 or 6 year period there where if we played twice, we tried to play at least twice a week out, and if we did that, we would practice 4 days a week.
Wow.
Maybe leave if we had a big Agora show coming, we'd practice every day of the week right up to it. So really there wasn't a lot of going out on the nights, you know, we weren't busy. Later, yeah, we did, but, yeah, I don't know. I lost my train of thought there, Ken.
Which Cleveland shows stand out in your head besides, I mean, the Bowie show, I've had like 4 or 5 people talk about.
I saw Genesis when that first live album came out with the blue cover. It was a single album, the blacklight cover.
Yeah, with him in the mask.
We saw that exact show from like the 6th row of the Allen. Incredible. Then, and this is weird, I mentioned in Genesis, I said I'm not really prog guy. Alan and I watched 2 nights of The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. That was insane.
Was that the Agora? Or?
No, that was the music hall.
Okay.
And yeah, we said 2 nights. The one night we were real close, like 2nd row orchestra, and then the next night we had the 2nd row of the balcony. So it was great to see both perspectives of it, because the first night you're just plastered back in your seat going, oh my God, this is crazy. And then the next night we got, you know, being like wannabe musicians and stuff, we took a more technical look at it, you know?
Yeah, you're up above and can see the whole stage.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Look the way they have the drums set up there, Alan. Look at, oh, he's got his bass amp turning this way, you know. It was kind of like, then we started to think about things. I know I'm kind of drifting around here.
Don't worry about it. That's what this shit's about, because the drifting is what gets you to the
good place,
the
sweet spot.
Yeah, the sweet spot or the synergy or the, you know. I don't mind drifting and wandering.
No, that Bowie show, that revolutionized my life. Because right then I actually knew I eventually was going to be in a band. And, you know, obviously we never went with the, you know, the glam or the makeup, because that had passed by the time we were out. But boy, I dug every minute of that, man. And I just looked and goes, my dad will kill me if I put on eye makeup, but what the hell? He doesn't like me being in a band anyhow.
Did your parents ever come watch you play?
Yeah, a couple times. Not very much. Saw us at Mentorpool one time. Yeah, not their thing really at that point, you know. But I don't think, it seems like for the longest time they didn't think we were serious.
Yeah.
But we got real serious, you know. We got real serious right away. The one thing about the Giraffes is it didn't matter who you put us with. Fabulous Thunderbirds, the Ramones, the Fix, you know, whoever we played with, never ever intimidated by them. Mm-hmm. Our mission was to blow them off. And that kind of goes back to the whole Crocus Behemoth thing. They're like, F you, buddy. You think you're better than us just from the rip? You haven't even heard us yet. So that was cool.
So talk about like playing with bands like the Ramones. I mean, did you ever get any comments or support from those people saying you guys are good? Or
the second time, the Ramones guys, I know Johnny said he thought we were real good. When we played with Joe Jackson, we opened for Joe Jackson twice. The first gig at the Agora, incredible. We knocked it out. And so he puts his second album out. He's got a show at the music hall. They call us to open again. And we were kind of weirded out. We're like, oh, that's strange. They want us to open again. And he apparently he didn't sell a whole lot of tickets, so they bumped it off over to the Little Theater, that little known place down there, and which is still a great theater, part of the whole complex. And we come out to, they invite us back. We're like, oh God, thanks, man. You guys are so cool. And we go out. We're starting our set. I find out later that Graham Maybe, the bass player for Joe, my girlfriend at the time and Mike's girlfriend at the time, our wives now, were sitting up in the balcony. They just wanted to see us, from up there. And there's this cat in front of them smoking clove cigarettes and sitting there waiting for us to play. And he picked up on something and goes, are you girls with this guy? With this band? And he's like, they're like, yeah, that's our boyfriends down there. And he's like, oh my gosh. He goes, we love these guys so much. He goes, we actually asked the promoter to bring them back for this show because we wanted to see them again. I don't know if it was Joe so much, but the rest of the band did. And here's a cool thing. We go out and start. We might have played one song and started the second song, and Edgar always played a Fender Twin, and it literally went up in smoke, like a flame shoot out of a tube, whatever. It literally smoked right on stage. We're dead in the water. Ed's like, what do I do? He turns around and looks, and Joe Jackson's guitar player is leaning on his stack of Marshalls because he wanted to see us too. And Ed goes, dude, can I use your amp? And he goes, oh yeah, mate, yeah, here, come on, let me hook you up here, and he plugged them all in and did a little tweaking and played the rest of our show. Just killed. Edgar should never, ever have touched a Marshall amp because he almost killed Alan's hearing. But anyhow, after the show, we play a great set. We go upstairs, Edgar and I go upstairs, and we're going to just say thanks, man. Hey, thanks for saving our set. You guys are the best, Thanks for asking us back. That is so darn cool. We love playing with you. And Ed goes, yeah, man. He goes, I mean, I can't believe it. Of all times for my amp to just go up in flames. And Joe, who hadn't even looked at us at that time, kind of angry young man, spins around in his chair and goes, oh yeah? Oh, I wish I could have fucking seen it. And turns back around. And Ed and I just kind of look at each other and go, all right, hey, thanks fellas, see y'all later. You guys are all cool. And we got the heck out of there. But it was cool, the band liked us.
Yeah. So what clubs were the regular circuit for you, your band?
Oh, Pirates Cove, Hennessy's, Fantasy, the Bank in Akron we played a lot. JB's in Kent, Mother's in Kent. Illyria. We had the best time. Some of our best gigs ever were at a place called the Zephyr in Illyria. Last time I was out there, it was a strip club now, but this was amazing because like a good portion of our fan club came from out that way. And we'd go out there and play, and they loved it because instead of having to drive to Cleveland, they had a 10-minute ride home, and we had the hour ride back. Right. But Zephyr Bob, the guy, it was the Zephyr Grill, and Zephyr Bob loved the kids. He just loved the vibe of the rock and roll and the bands. And we'd play there, and there's at the end of our set, he'd be trying to get people to leave, and people would leave, and the not-so-regulars would leave, and then he would just go, okay, everybody cool? He'd lock the doors, and we'd sit there till 4:30 in the morning. He'd make us breakfast. He'd make us like steak and eggs for breakfast.
Cool.
And we'd sit there drinking, and we'd all go home. Not on the freeway, of course. We osmosised ourselves home back then. But anyhow, it was a great time. And the Zephyr people, I just love them dearly, man. Still good friends. Jeff Craig, Paul Compier. They were in a band called the Invaders that we played with. Great guys. Only band I ever knew that did Lenny and the Squigtones song. So that made them cool.
Laverne and Shirley?
Yeah, yeah. If only I'd have listened to Mama. You got to look it up. It's a great song. It's an excellent rock and roll song. And they used to pull that off, and I would just love it.
Land of the Giants or Time Tunnel?
Ooh. Time Tunnel, actually. Because, you know...
I don't even know where that fucking question
That's a great question. Land of the Giants... No, because that was a little hokey. You know, if I looked at Time Tunnel now, that would be pretty hokey too. But I just dug that big spiraling thing, and I always dug the concept of time travel. You know, like, where could I go? Where could I be? Oh my God, look at that! You're killing me. Oh dear Lord, that is too cool. Too cool.
You can borrow it if you want to blast.
Oh man, you know, I'll probably never watch it, but I do remember that show.
Yeah. I don't even know where that
do. They go back to the past.
It was almost like Quantum Leap, but different.
Yeah.
They jump in that thing with the
swirly, the tunnel.
Yeah, and jump in it, and they'd end up in the past to solve some problem.
Something.
That a crease in history.
Somebody kind of reapproached this with something. I'm drawing a blank on what the show is. It's fairly recent, and they would go, I don't know. I don't watch much TV.
Yeah.
Unless it's like a cooking show or, you know, something stupid. Fishing, I like that.
So, take me through the end of the Wild Giraffes. You know, how did that implode, or what happened?
We were still recording, still talking about recording.
What year are you talking?
84, end of 84. You know, Bill kind of wandered away again. The 2.5, 3 year thing with, you know, the guitar players. Oh, I'm sorry, your mic is right there. I didn't mean to do that. So he quit. Alan had already quit prior to that. We had a gig at the Stables that he quit during. We had Eric Herman at that point. Great drummer. And it just became apparent that after like 10 years, the thing had run its course. Edgar still had a ton of songs, but at one point it became me and him and Kurt trying to demo with a drum machine, and we weren't playing gigs, so we didn't have the money to record, because, you know, you can't just go to Guitar Center and buy one of these for, you know, whatever. That's another thing that pisses me off about today. These kids have so much access to gear. It doesn't make me mad. I'm sorry. That makes me feel great for the kids. Yes, absolutely, because we had to kick and fight and play our asses off for everything we ever recorded. And nowadays, you know, my phone could...
I'm amazed at the recording quality of these phones compared to those little shitty cassette recorders we'd smuggle in to try to make bootlegs with. sounded like crap.
Well, there's another thing, Ken, is that there are virtually no pictures. I mean, there's pictures of the wild giraffes, but nobody had a cell phone.
Right,
Nobody, you know, there wasn't. The only people that carried cameras
Was
were
Anastasia and
photographers.
Janet Muskaka.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, Anastasia has taken so many good pictures of us.
And what she's done for this scene, you know, some people
Incredible.
are polarized by her. I've always respected the shit out of her.
love
Even when I
Anastasia.
didn't agree with her interviews or her reviews. Like one time, like our anniversary of Scene came out, we were both living at Coventry, and I'm behind her in line at the Kroger.
She lived on Larchmere.
Yeah.
We did a photo shoot at her place.
I read this review where she lambasted the Jefferson Starship Blows Against the Empire, which was one of my favorite LSD albums.
Okay.
And so I sat there, had her trapped in line, and sat there arguing about the review with her.
Reviewing her review.
Yeah, and disputing it, and we sat there going back and forth, and you know, I'd known her since I was like 12 because I'd go to shows. I'd have Balkan Concert Club seats and go alone.
Yeah.
And so as a single ticket, I'd end up seated next to Jane Scott and Anastasia, you know, and I knew Jane from my grandfather, you know, and
I don't think I ever met her, but anyhow, go ahead.
And so, you know, you can look at all the things she did. Star Magazine, you know, she's given her heart and soul to music.
Absolutely.
Through her lens and through her writing. And,
Yeah.
And she really, you know, she was almost like the anti-Jane Scott.
Right. You know, though, that's the thing. You know, reviews are so personal. I never really, you know, I read them with, yeah, it's like, okay, that's your opinion, that's fine. You know, I might have been at the same show and loved it.
Shh, don't tell Steve Patterson.
No. All the shows you love, Steve, are good. Yeah, but Anastasia, like I said, you read what you read. You know, the guy I liked was Dave Volker.
Yeah.
Because he never, I don't know, Mark Holan told me he didn't really have kind words for a whole lot of people. He was fairly critical, but he loved the Giraffes. He really did, and that was kind of cool. He reviewed one of the Joe Jackson shows, and his first line was like, well, when they walked out, I thought, oh no, these guys are way too young. And then went on to say, you know, we played a really good set, and he was impressed. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, you made me realize I thought I had never seen the Wild Giraffes, but the second Joe Jackson show I was at.
There you go. So you saw us. You would have seen the whole...
I have to be honest, I can't recall.
Oh, dude, you know, my memory's getting so bad anymore. I'm lucky I remember all this stuff. I almost brought my wife because she would remember what I was wearing on that given night, you know. I mean, seriously, I'm not kidding.
Sounds like you married your biggest fan.
Yeah, I did. Oh, God. Yeah. That was the thing, you know. All these, you know, you come off stage, you're all sweaty, you're looking cool, you're drying off, and all the little chickies come up and like, oh, you were so good. Zoop! There's the arm on the arm. Yeah, thank you. You meet Beth?
So talk about these new releases.
Okay, it's a wonderful set. Alan McGinty, the drummer of the Wild Giraffes. I mean, the other guys, we had John Walsh for a gig, maybe a gig. We had Eric Herman for quite a while, a couple years. He was a great drummer, great kid, great guy. Anyhow, okay, so McGinty, we end up rounding up all our old tapes, like as many as we can. And he's got the 2-inch master of, well, he sent that back to Patty, but he digitized it, so there may be a reboot of the first album in the future, which it needed desperately.
Why?
Combination of things, not enough time or money. You know, after dark, we were real comfortable in that studio, but it was what it was. You know, it wasn't a world-class studio. Kirk, great guy. John Eberly, George Sipple, they were all great dudes and helped us. They recorded us as best they could. And you know, we'd go in there and do our thing. A lot of live tracks, a lot of, you know, like there were a couple reference vocals I probably kept, but anyhow, McGinney takes all these old tapes. He plays some of them the first time, and they're 40 years old, and they may or may not have been stored properly. Plays one of the 2-inch master, I guess, of the album. That's what made him digitize it. And there was a pile of emulsion under the heads on the recording unit.
Coming off
playback.
The oxide coming off the back.
Yeah, and so he baked all the tapes. He took everything and baked them, and then like digitized them. Anyhow, brilliant idea, Mr. McGinty, is making the packages different so the peeps gotta buy them both. But anyhow, the guy that did our artwork back then, Danny Carmine, some of you know him as Kevin, he did all our artwork back then, so we tasked him because he always does such a wonderful job. And I thought it was brilliant with them. We had no idea where he was going to go. But the outline of the North Shore of Cleveland, and then for him to, you know, we were mostly from Mentor. We were kind of like, you know, Ed and Alan and I all grew up in Mentor. And so he put Mentor right up by the head of the giraffes, the way it all lined up. Of course, that's the bridge from the flats that everybody knows, because that's where we started, Pirates Cove and Fitzpatrick's and Fagan. No, we never played Fagan's. Fitzpatrick's.
Where's that? I never heard of that one.
That was right below the bridge, coming down the hill, not River Road, Lakeside. I think when Lakeside went down the hill into the flats, it was this little, you know, armpit.
In one of the warehouses.
No, it was a freestanding building, but it was literally like right under the freeway bridge.
Okay.
And it was pretty cool. I wish I had the photo.
So beyond Larry Flint's club?
I have no idea where that is.
It was like Peabody's, and then Larry Flint's club, the Hustler Club, and then there was other
Not
shit
back
there,
then.
you know?
Back then, when I'm talking about, it was Fitzpatrick's, Fagan's, the Pirates Cove, and the Harbor Inn, and that was all that was in the flats. Anyhow, back to this. Alan, you're brilliant. You make the disc have all the extra songs, and you make the album have the booklet that explains how cool we were. This has the disc has the 8 live songs. Then it has 8 songs that a couple of them probably would have been on the second album had we gotten there. One of them is our Christmas song. You know, just a bunch of stuff we had in the can, and I guess there's still a bunch that's viable. This has a nice little gatefold with a bunch of pictures. Then you get the album, because of the pressing limitations and not wanting to make it a double, and to get it to sound hot and, you know, jump out of the grooves. Alan put the 8 live songs on the album. You don't get the other 8 songs that woulda, shoulda, coulda, you know, come up later, but you do get this world-class 20-page book inside there with a bunch of reviews and trivia stuff, and just you'll see what it is. And It was a pretty cool package, and I'm glad. See, I didn't have the wherewithal, I didn't have the money, I didn't have the. I can't do it. I'm not a recording engineer. Alan's a recording engineer. He had Herb Jackson Records, you know, he's done all that. So he was the only one that could have done it. He had the money to put up for it. You know, he kind of went on to be a captain of industry, if you will. So he's one of those guys that knows how to get things done. And, you know, guy ended up getting 5 master's degrees. But it's a beautiful package. You won't regret it. And it was certainly a piece of Cleveland history, you know, that I am just so thankful that people will get to hear it. You know, because I would have died knowing that all this stuff's in the can
and no
one's ever going to hear it.
It'll get tossed out when somebody passes or whatever.
Yeah.
What was the furthest outside of Cleveland impact or moment that, or review or accomplishment of the Wild Giraffes that you're proudest of?
Well, the only big road trip we ever took was, for some reason, I have no idea how this happened. We had a guy named Don Conti managing us. He used to manage Lucky Pierre, and we kind of stole him away, making 10% of nothing. And somehow we got booked at 2 nights, one at the Mile Club in Charlotte, North Carolina, and one at some crazy pizza shop in like pizza shop restaurant in Greenville, North Carolina. And those were so incredibly off the hook that we drove home the whole time going, we got to get out of town, we got to get out of town. But you see, that was our biggest problem. Rock bands, if you want to make anything happen, you got to live in your parents' basement. You know, we all had jobs, we had cars and payments, we had, you know, we always maintained a giraffe house for like a long period, and where we would have a place to practice. Whoever wanted to live there could live there. I never chose to because I had a girlfriend and, you know, didn't really want to subject her to that kind of lifestyle. But so we really, it would have been really hard. We would have needed like a bankroll or something, you know. And that's, speaking of bankrolls, when we had the aforementioned Don Conti as our manager, we had just recorded the album, and it came out, and pretty much we were getting reviews saying it not that consistent, because it was 12 sessions, 12 different sessions. You're setting up your equipment, you're taking it down, it's going to sound different. And so we had no consistency. We wanted someone to, we needed someone to bankroll us. Don, his dad, big shot in the business world, whatever, had a friend that was going to throw us some money on speculation to go back in and re-record the whole album in the space of like a week or, you know, whatever. Just leave everything set up, get a consistent sound. 5 members in the band. Don said, well, look, you got, because we had gotten tugs from some labels about it, you know, like, send us some more, clean this up, yada yada. So Don came up with this plan with his dad's friend, and he said, but I want you guys to sign some kind of management contract with me so that, you know, if something happens, maybe I get a little piece of it, which he well deserved. And I voted yes, Tom Jarris voted yes, the other 3 said no. And this really goes to the decline of the band too, because then we decided to self-manage. bands don't ever self-manage. Hire good management, because you will immediately get in a fight about who's calling the truck, who's calling the club, who's calling the PA guys we're renting for, you know, that kind of thing, where the band needs to just be the talent. The band needs to walk in like a big shot rock star and play the gig, hang out and be cool. You don't need, you know, you can't be picking up gear and talking to the owners and all that crap. You hire management kids.
So after the Giraffes, you moved on. What year did the Giraffes end?
Yeah, call it the spring of '85.
Okay.
But again, at that point, it was pretty much just me and Ed, you know, knocking some songs around. So yeah, so it was a good 10-year run, basically.
Your band after that?
Yeah, well, I didn't do anything for a long time. Then, you know, Steve Podison started having all these parties, his Faces parties, he called them back then, because they were the Lake County Faces, these guys. And he and all his pals, great parties. I loved every one of them. And we formed a band for that gig. And it was kind of a revolving door, but it always involved myself and a guy named Dave Hudson on bass. Scotty Pickering was our drummer most of the time. Keith Pickering might have been, he was one of our guitar players perhaps the whole time. Mike Terrell from the Giraffes played a couple of gigs, but we did like, 4 or 5 parties. And, you know, that just went on, we played those. Then my buddies, I was very honored to be asked to be in a band called the Newcastle Quartet, Lake County outfit involving, they're all pretty legendary in the Lake County circles. All my old heroes from when I was a kid, they're all a little older than my sister, so these were my like idols. It was Al Globacar, guitar, Randy Klawan, guitar, Jack Freeman, bass player, and Dave Nida, the legendary Dave Nida, R.I.P. Dave, love you, man. And they had me sing like 5 or 6 songs. I wanted to sing all of them, but they were like, well, no, you can't take that one away from me. So we did that a while, and that was a great experience, just playing with my heroes. And then after that, Wally Gunn, my good buddy Wally, asked me if I wanted to get in the Dukes of Windsor. And that was a great lineup too. Stan was the singer, harmonica player guy at Stan Townhouse. These guys, a couple of these guys, Wally and Stan, were in the Baloney Heads, another great band. And they just thought maybe they needed a singer, and so they brought me in. Unfortunately, Stan got really ill and passed away. I think it might have been like pancreatitis or pancreatic cancer, or maybe colon cancer, but he got real sick. So I took over the harmonica and the singing, you know, but that was a great outfit because we must have learned. I look at the little flyer that we used to give out, and there had to be 150 songs on there, but the beauty of that band was it was all peripherally British-based blues, like 60s, 70s. So I got to be Eric Burden, I got to be, Steve Winwood, I got to be all these great singers for a couple minutes. And that was a wonderful band. And then we played, Stan got sick, passed away, we played a while, and then I don't know, I guess the gigs just dried up, you know, as bands do. They tend to...
What year was that?
Oh God. I'm gonna say around the early 2000s.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, you know, that's been about it until I got into lovely Rumbling Spires.
So tell me how that started. I love the juxtaposition of the players in there. You've got Swanee, you know, who's played with anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, Andy Leach, one of the most subtle, great guitar players that I've ever seen. He's played right below you in Brent Kirby and the Lost Fortunes about 10 years ago at my summer party. And that's when I first met Andy, and when he saw my tapes and books, he's super
dude. Wonderful guy.
Then you got Depew, it's a totally different kind of guitar player. And then you I have to say, you turn into a manic possessed person on stage.
I try to. It's not, again, Ken, that just goes to the drive I've always had to be a singer. You know, when I get on there, when I get on stage, it's not that I turn into a different person. I turn into the person I am. I just can't be the rest of the time during the day, you know?
Yeah.
So, the person I want to be is that guy sweating on stage and cranking the songs out. But anyhow, I saw them, I want to say the Spires opened for Red Cross maybe, which would make sense because Dave's friends with those guys. And we were at, oh God, I can't even remember the club, but Kristen from Garageland's boyfriend John said to me, he goes, at the time Swanee was the guitar player and singer, Depew second guitar, Brian bass, Tommy Rich on drums.
Wow.
Great drummer.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow.
I've been blessed to play with nothing but great drummers.
When I see him with Stevie Oakham, all I can think of is this is as close to Keith Moon as I will see again.
He is incredible, and even a nicer guy. But anyhow, Kristen's boyfriend says, you know, you ought to be the singer of this band. And I was listening to him, and I said, you know, he's right. I could sing all these songs because the Rainy Day, or the Rumbling Spires, well, the Rainy Day Saints too, it's kind, you know, Dave writes a whole lot like Edgar wrote. You know, verse, middle eight, chorus, verse, you know, the song structure. And so it was very comfortable, but I walked around the rest of the night at that show going, I should be the singer. I was telling everybody that would listen. And Swanee calls me and goes, hey man, you want to be the singer of this band? And I was like, yeah. And so he played for a while. Dave played guitar for a while. Problem was, Tommy runs the School of Rock, for like two of the School of Rocks around here. And that's a really cool thing. That's you ought to interview him about that. But
And Shelley.
Yeah, but he couldn't get to practice till like 9:30 and, you know, 9:30 sometimes, and we'd be all sitting around twiddling our thumbs. I get up at 4:30 in the morning for work, so it made it a little rough. Mutual ways, Dave wanted to go back to playing drums. That's his natural, you know, that's where he's more comfortable, I think. And so at that point, he took over on drums. We got Andy to supplant Dave's guitar. And Don, wonderful guy, the guitar, Ken, I used to sit in Brian's basement, just stand there. Andy would be standing here, Depew would be over here, and they would find ways to solo at this, like kind of at the same time, but not step on each other's toes.
Right? Yeah.
And I would just stand there like drooling down my shirt going, this is freaking incredible. And, you know, Don, wonderful musician. He is one of those guys that is sort of a restless soul. He will go, you know, he'll be in a band for a while, and then he'll get a new idea.
Yeah.
And, you know, all of a sudden he gets a little, you know, he's a little done. Okay, we got our thing done over here. This sounds good. I think I'm going to go try this. And, you know, so he split, and we just went on as a 4-piece, and I think it really works. But, yeah, Don's next band, I saw him right after that. They played with us, actually, at the Happy Dog. He got in a band with 3 other guitar players, and he played lead bass.
Wow.
It was incredible. Wow. I've never seen anything like it. Like a little wall of, you know, rhythm guitars.
Well, like Entwistle plays lead bass.
Yeah, only
yeah.
Don was up front playing it. It was a really cool approach. I loved it.
So he left after like that Happy Dog with Baseball Project gig, or?
No, he. Oh. I don't think he even played that. Was he?
Oh yeah, he was there.
He was there. Okay, yeah. Then when we played the Rock Hall, outside the Rock Hall, that was his last gig. Okay. That's right. He was at the Baseball Project, yeah.
In the meantime, we're going to annoy you with a little list of songs of our own.
that was another thing, man. How crazy is that? Half of R.E.M. and they said they loved it.
They did.
Peter Buck said, "I'll do this again, man."
Peter Buck's so fucking cool. I mean,
I didn't really get to talk to him. I regret that.
you know what? He doesn't talk much anymore. When I met him in '85, and I was getting tape receipts from R.E.M., he loved the fact that I handed him a tape the day after the show because I'd be at the next show, and he was like, "Hey, you know what? If you're going to do this, let's get you good seats."
There you go.
You know, and so he gave me the number for Liz Hammond at the R.E.M. office, and I'd literally just call her up and say, "I want to go to this show, this show, this show, this show." And I'd be seated next to the opening acts and the touring girlfriends.
Wow.
And would be in with the band. All three of the guys, except for Stipe, were incredibly communicative, friendly, just wanted to hang out, party, and you know, talk rock and roll. Stipe was always surrounded by so many girls, which evidently didn't
make much sense. But yeah, that's understandable.
And so I never ever had really a conversation with him. But Buck, you know, once we started talking about music, I started feeding him like videotapes, and they'd watch them on the bus. So I'll never forget, I think I inspired the song Lightning Hopkins because I gave him a videotape of the blues according to Lightning Hopkins, the tour before that album came out.
I would have to say you were directly involved with that, man.
That's my gut feeling. I gave it to him.
For sure.
And such a great musical relationship, and a friendly, down-to-earth guy. And I think what happened to him is once he became too famous, too many people wanted to talk to him. You know? But to see those guys that weekend so many times in someone's basement, and then to see him at the Happy Dog, and then to see him at the Rock Hall, and to see them meet Pedro Martinez after their gig. I have great pictures of them meeting, you know,
at the hall. At the hall. Oh, man.
And so cool. And, you know, Steve Wynn and Linda Pittman are such cool people too.
Yeah.
You know, I had met them prior to that out in New York at a Long Riders concert. And
it was funny. You know, I like I said, I've never been intimidated, but when I met Steve, I said, "Hey man, how you doing?" You know, and Dave Swanee's standing right there. I go, "Hey, you must be Steve. I'm Chris. How you doing? I'm Swanee's singer." And Steve looks at Swanee. He goes, "Oh, you've got your own singer now, have you?" Or something like that. And they just laughed, and I'm like, "What, man? I sing for his band." Well, no, Steve couldn't have been cooler. Yeah, they were all really cool. Scott McGoy, oh yeah, good dude.
He's amazing too, and you know, the basement show the night before or 2 nights before that,
I would die. Oh, I'd love to have seen that.
It was a Scott show, and it was about his aneurysm album, you know.
Oh,
and it was so intimate. It was totally different than the.
Did he have an aneurysm?
Yeah, he had to learn. Buck basically went to the hospital with the guitar and retaught him, gave him a guitar so he could relearn how to play guitar.
Boy, you know how important that is to probably reestablish that after
the mathematical part of our brains and our personas that playing guitar, which I've never ever been able to play any instrument, but you know, that had to bring him back. Likewise, Garcia, when he had his coma in '86, he went into a diabetic coma, and had to relearn how to play guitar. And you think about people that are that, you know, incredible, you know, virtuosic musicians having to relearn their craft, and you have to think it had to reprogram their brain.
Sure, it does.
Yeah.
You know, like the little part holding that knowledge is screwed. You know, got a big bruise or something, and your mind just that's the human body is an amazing.
What's
thing.
the buzz like when you're performing?
Oh my God, luckily, having been in good bands that play well with good musicians, I've never really had to worry about like us having a bad night, you know. So I'm always able to get in my element, and like you said, become another person. I'm not really becoming another person. I'm becoming that person in my element, and the buzz is enormous because, you know, we play the smaller clubs. We don't have the huge lights. I can see the people. And I have always been able to make eye contact with people. I've never had a problem with that. I'm not hiding anything. And when you see directly that while you're playing that song, somebody's digging on it, it's incredible. There's no better buzz, you know. There's no drug. There's no nothing, you know. Okay, well, let's leave sex out of this equation, but anyhow, no, there's just, you know, there's nothing like it, man. It's the greatest euphoric feeling that I've ever had personally. You know, it just it gives you back so much. You know, I used to, when the Giraffes would play, things are different now. Worst thing that ever happened to rock and roll is air conditioning in the clubs, because the bands it's so hard to get super sweaty and hot. But I would, with the Giraffes, we would play and all 5 members would just be soaked to the skin. And you'd get done, you know, clean up the gear, whatever you gotta do. Dry off a little bit, have that beer, and about an hour after the gig, I would feel purified. I literally, like, I sweat all the poison out. You know, I knew I did my work. I had this good feeling in my heart that we played, you know, well. And I don't know, there's nothing like that. I try to achieve that with the Rumbling Spires, and I do. But like I said, I can't get sweaty anymore. I used to love bringing a change of clothes, like, okay, these are getting soaked, go in the bag, you know, wash them tomorrow. Nah. They're talking about that Fitzpatrick's under the bridge. There was a great picture one time. I want to say John Rodriguez took it, and I don't have a copy, but I've seen it, and it was like freezing cold out. And we just got done playing, and I was just soaked, and I ran outside into the parking lot just to get a little cool all of a sudden. And John went with me and took this picture, and I didn't realize it was happening at the time, but I'm standing there just looking right in the lens, and steam is just coming off my body. Wow. And just flailing into the wind, and I always loved that picture, because that was like literally like, you know, a minute after we came off, and it looked like I was on fire. It was pretty cool.
What's been your proudest musical moment?
Proudest musical moment. Wow. You know, with all the stuff we have done, probably my proudest musical moment was coming back from the blown up vocal cord. Second place, when we got picked to actually open for the Ramones. Because I had seen them a couple times before that already, and I was like, good God, this band is just, you know, enormous. They didn't even make that much sound. They were just really loud and really good. And when we got that, I was like, okay, we've made it. We're cool. I don't know, you know, any of those opening gigs. The Thunderbirds, I was like beside myself. I'm like, I love the fabulous Thunderbirds.
That's an odd pairing.
Kind of it was, yeah, because we were, you know, sort of pop. No, we were power poppy. But that was when...
that didn't matter.
that was when, what was it, T-Bird Rhythm? I'm not sure if that might have been the album we opened for them on, and they were trying to be a little more commercial, but they were cool.
That was before Wrap It Up and all that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was when they had Keith Ferguson, the original bass player.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, he was their first couple albums or whatever. And he was cool because he heard our sound check. And he heard Dave, and Dave had no problem playing anywhere on the neck. He could get up there and, up high and do stuff. And, we come off after sound check, and Keith is there. He's wearing like a see-through, thin nylon shirt. He's got all these crazy tattoos showing through all over. He looks like he just got out of the joint. And he looks at Dave, and he goes, "Hey man, you play all that stuff way up high on the neck." And we're all like, yeah, he gets up there. He goes, "I've been in Mexican wedding bands where they would have shot me if I played something up that high." And we just all cracked up. He was laughing, we're all laughing. He was totally busting our balls, but it was funny as hell. Yeah, and then, I don't know, man.
Raunchiest rock and roll moment that you observed. I don't want you to indict yourself.
It would probably involve Dave Ivan. Dave was... Oh, God. Well, I can think of a real bad moment that was kind of historic. Raunchy?
Yeah, go down that road of, whichever road you want.
So we're playing at the Pirates Cove with the Pagans, and they're opening for us. And at the time, it was a really strange lineup because the local folkie, the Lake County folkie, Denny Carleton, for some reason joined that band for a short time. Thank God he did, because he wrote Boy Can I Dance Good. And so anyhow, the Pagans are all tripping. Everybody except Denny, of course, Bible thumping kind of guy, good man. So they're all tripping. They had another guitar player, Louis Kolar, at the time, and his wife Roz was there. And Mike, in his infinite wisdom, saw fit to go screw her up in the dressing room. Louis caught them. He came down, grabbed his guitar and amp, and split. And Denny is like, "What the hell's going on?" And the rest of them are just like, "Ah." So anyhow, they played a gig, and the next day Denny quit too. And then they had to play the Tomorrow Club a week later, the next weekend, in Youngstown with the Dead Boys. So it was kind of a big gig.
Yeah.
And they didn't have a guitar player. Alan, at the time, our Alan McGinty, worked with Mike Medoff. And he goes, "Well, hey, you guys, I know a guitar player. He might give it a shot." Things hooked up. Mike goes over there. Alan and I were with them. Goes over there, practices their songs for 7 hours. Just that set, whatever set they were going to play. One practice, they go out, do the gig, nail it. And then, Mike was in the band from then on. That was a pretty raunchy moment, too. I drank their beer. I drank the Hammer Damage's beer. I think they played, and I drank the Dead Boys beer. They all came like I'm roadieing for the Pagans, which meant stand around drinking everybody's beer. And so we're hanging around. Hammer Damage plays, Dead Boys play, and they're coming off stage, and in the back room, it's not a raunchy moment, it's kind of a dick move, but it was my punk move. I thought this was the most punk thing I could do. Dead Boys are walking off stage right after their set. They're right in front of me. There's a bunch of guys with them. I'm leaning on the wall like with my hands behind me holding a full 16-ounce cup of beer. And they go, and the dressing rooms are downstairs down a little spiral staircase. And Bader's is the first one down, and he starts walking down, and he's about halfway down. And something made me just take my beer, you know, from probably 12 feet away and throw it at him. And somehow, miraculously, the beer in the cup managed to stay like this in the air, hit the wall about 3 feet in front of his head, and dumped all over him. By the time that happened, I was standing with my hands back behind my back, kind of looking around, just being cool. And they all start yelling, "Who threw that beer? Who threw that beer? Who threw that beer?" So I thought, to take suspicion off, I'd just go, "Hey, who threw that beer at Bader's? Who threw that beer?" Never figured it out. I would have got my ass kicked. There was like 10 guys there that would have beat the crap out of me. Bader's was pissed. I never got to tell him that, you know, that was me.
Favorite Cleveland band besides yourselves? If you had to see any Cleveland band again.
Oh, jeez. Lucky Pierre, probably. Lucky Pierre, certainly. They'd be the top of the list. Baloney Heads, I'd love to see them. Let me think of somebody weird that, well, the Invaders, they were Illyria. James Gang, God, I would love to see the James Gang.
Me fucking too.
Raspberries, I never saw the Raspberries. That's you know, bucket list crap, but that won't happen.
I saw him with the Knack at the Nautica, but it was the reformed.
Yeah.
It wasn't the heyday shit. Well, cool. This has been awesome.
Yeah.
I knew we would talk really well.
Dude, you ever want to talk again? I'll think of some other crap.
Cool.